Welcome back, guys. Michael, Tim, happy to see you guys again. It's always fun doing this with you all, but it's even better when you knock off a number 6 ranked team. I know it's early, but somebody's got to win, right? Might as well be us. And also, it's different, the Champions Classic. Like it's something of like 1-5, 1-6 over the last few years. Like it's something terrible. We always get beaten this game. I saw a stat by Corey Price on X or Twitter last night. It said this is the first time Kentucky basketball has started 3-0 since like 2017 or something of that sort. Like 3-0. You got your early cupcake games. You're just asking to get 3-0. That stat solely goes back to the Champions Classic. Like no other way around saying that. But anyways, Kentucky was able to get the done in Atlanta, knocking off Cooper Flagg in Atlanta. And Michael, you were there. Me and Tim didn't make the trip. I absolutely regret it. There wasn't really any reason why. I wish I could have been there with you. Michael, you were sitting courtside. What was that win like being in person?
It was wild. I'm still exhausted from the whole trip and everything, but to be there in that moment, which you felt in the days before and the weeks before and the months before, you knew this was a big game, right? But in that building, it just felt like it was just such a massive moment for the program. Win or lose, like it was going to be like, all right, has Pope arrived? Is he going to get this signature win? Or is this team maybe not as good as what we thought? And how much work do they still have left to do to get up and be one of the big boys? Can Pope get his first big win? There were just so many different like check marks that you needed to see checked off. And man, they just rolled with it, man. It was such an incredible game to be at, both fighting Kentucky Duke. It was a physical game, man. I'm sitting right there at the court, and probably like 6-7 feet away is the bench, like right there. I mean, and I'm seeing like Jackson Robinson, Amari Williams, these guys going over to the bench, just heaving, exhausted. It's just such a physical basketball game. And for the Cats to turn it on like that in the second half on defense and make it even more physical, man, it was special to see Pope go out there and kiss Mrs. Kentucky, Leanne Pope, and then fist pump and pump up the crowd, walking off that court, man. It was like, all right, he arrived. He definitely arrived. It was a huge moment for the program, and huge moment for the fans. Happy for the fans because you guys have been in misery the last few years with it, being all about Cal, and Pope's like, man, it's all about us. And he proved it there, and the players played for him. The atmosphere was amazing. The Kentucky crowd was just way louder than the Duke crowd. Like in the first half, Cooper Flagg gets subbed into the game, and they say on the announcements, all right, in for Duke, Cooper Flagg, and no cheers. I'm like, what? The Duke crowd, like the Kentucky crowd cheers no matter who enters the game. Like, of course, they're going to cheer loud at home for Perry or Noah, and they would always cheer for Reed. But, like, they cheer for anyone coming in the game. And there wasn't a single cheer for Cooper Flagg entering the game. I was like, guys, what's going on? And then you heard a couple, like, Duke chants, but the Go Big Blues and, like, the Kentucky fans were loud, man. So it just felt like a massive moment, and you don't want to overstate it too much because it is one game, but the win is a win for the resume, but the moment just means a little bit more, I think, for the entire program. And it was special to be there.
Tim, you watched that game too, man. What was your takeaways?
Well, I got to say, the Duke crowd sounded a lot louder on TV than it did, I guess, there in person. So I guess they turned up the volume a little bit for them, maybe. But no, I mean, in all seriousness, that second half of basketball is some of the greatest college basketball I feel like I've watched. I mean, it was physical. The adjustment Pope came out with in the second half. I mean, I think he even said that the first half was just all about collecting data. And I mean, you could tell he made that adjustment, went out there. They had to, like, how many fouls, like, in 6 minutes of the 6 minutes left of the first half? Probably.
Duke was in double bonus.
Yeah. I mean, it was insane.
Like 9, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, they came back out there, and I feel like there were some moments where the rest kind of just let them play, didn't do as many little fouls, but I mean, it was seriously a great basketball game. I give credit to Duke. I will say I don't like them, but I'll always give credit where credit's due. Their center tweaked his knee, kept going out there fighting. And I mean, I know the announcer said it all game long, but those two freshmen they have, I know Knuppel, I want to say his name is. He didn't have that great of a showing, but Cooper Flagg, of course, did.
Yeah. I had a little bit different approach than you all did. I went into kind of just going through my afternoon yesterday on Tuesday afternoon I just knew there wasn't a world where Kentucky went down there and got blown out. Like, I don't think, like, most of the day I wasn't predicting a win, but I was like, worst case scenario, Kentucky loses by 10. But my thing going into this is, like, I didn't expect to win. If we won, then we're on top of the world. You can't tell me anything. Everything's golden. I just knew a Mark Pope coach basketball team is going to be collected. It's going to be broken down. Going to be get ready for the moment. And hearing him talking to Tom Leach before the game, he was going in depth about Duke's roster with their weaknesses and strengths. I'm like, this guy's ready to go. Like, worst absolutely failure is going to be losing by 10 or less. And then we started the game off 5 for 5 from the three. I just know that arena was going insane. I was watching from home in my apartment by myself, screaming. Like, it's I can't do that at the games when we're meeting, but when I'm home, I was just rolling. I was like, I was talking everything. I was like, Kentucky's gonna go down here and make a statement and win. And that first probably 6-7 minutes of the game, I was like, Mark Pope statue, just how we are, homers. Anyways. And then they went cold. They went absolutely cold. And that second half of the first half, the last 10 minutes, I was like, okay, this is really good. We got the lead. It's not still got a whole another half to come. Let's see how this team can go when they can't make threes, because we know they can hit threes, but what do they have to offer when they can't hit threes? Well, that last 8 to 10 minutes of the first half got kind of rough, and then all the thoughts of the past few years came, and I'm like, okay, this is going to just continue that thing. I mean, I didn't expect us to win, but I think we're going to come down here and lose to Duke, which is a good ball team, and then you go in the half down by 9. Start to wonder what are they going to be at like in the second half. They come out in the second half on fire. I think they scored the first 5 or 6 points. You could tell the team went in and made adjustments from the jump. Mark Pope had them ready for the second half. And like you said, Tim, Mark Pope said in his press conference they were collecting data. That's new. That's new for us, man. We have in-game adjustments based on what we saw in the first half, not just taking it to the rack. That's so rewarding to see. And then that second half, man, was a thrill, was a ride of a lifetime. Just for Kentucky to come out and win, Mark Pope, they're doing their tradition. They're starting a tradition where they go around and wave at everybody. He kisses his wife. Kentucky, I mean, you could hear the fans. Tim, I heard so many Kentucky fans do the TV. It was so loud. And I just knew those guys showed up, and then they won. And just so special for Mark Pope to go out there and, 1-0 versus Duke as a Kentucky coach. I think he's 1-1 his career, but like, statement win. I'm ready. And, they're going to, if you can beat Duke right now, the next 10 games are going to be pretty easy. I'm excited, man. Things worked out for Kentucky fans last night.
Yeah, we can look ahead more later in the pod, but it does look pretty good for the rest of this non-conference. I will say that that game out in Washington at Gonzaga, I don't think it's in Spokane. I think this one's in Seattle, right?
Seattle.
Yeah. But still, I mean, that's a tough one. They go to Clemson for the SEC ACC Challenge midweek and then go out to Washington. So that would probably be the first chance for a loss there. And then they got Louisville, they got Ohio State. I don't think they're going to go into SEC play undefeated. That's like asking a lot. So there's got to be a loss there. But for now, definitely enjoy this ride, man, and enjoy the ride high with it, because they just dug in the second half. I was a little concerned because they went on that run, then like you said, went cold, and also just the defense. I talked with Tom Leach on his radio show earlier in the day, called into his show. And I was like, look, we know that perimeter defense is fantastic for UK. But inside, like, it worries me a little bit against these bigs for Duke. You know, you got Cooper Flagg, you got other homeboy, and I just knew that they could have been a problem, and they were in the first half. It was like 26 points in the paint.
It was a big problem.
Yeah, well,
like 8.
Total they had 46 to our 26 points in the paint.
The first half was like 26 to like 8 maybe. And so like they were getting whatever they want. I don't want to throw out the S word, you know, I wouldn't call them playing soft, but you could tell that they did not have enough physicality down in the paint. Rim protection, we talked about it. You know, Pope had mentioned it in the couple home games, and we talked about giving up too many offensive rebounds, and that wasn't a problem in this game. But overall, I was just a little concerned about how the bigs would do in this game. And defensively, they weren't great in the first half, giving up Duke was getting whatever they wanted. I mean, you know, Cooper was taking his shots and Kneppel. But later in that first half, I give Shire credit. Like, they just went in the paint almost every possession. They were like, they can't stop us down there. We're going in there. And they just kept getting buckets down there. So I was a little concerned at halftime. I was telling my boys, I was like, all right, I think the Cats have another run in them, just like they did in the first half. Will it be enough? We'll see. And they didn't have like as explosive of a run. You know, you mentioned, Trace, that came out kind of hot. It was kind of like a couple buckets, though. It wasn't like an 8-0, 10-0. The run in the first half, I can't recall what it was exactly, but it might have been like a 12-4 or something, 12-2, something like that, but where they were just hitting those threes. They didn't really do that in the second half, but the defense was enough. It completely changed. They got up in Duke's grill. Cooper Flagg got what he wanted, man. That dude is as good as advertised in person. I was looking forward to just watching him in person, and he's the real deal. I mean, he's a bucket getter. And once he gets that handle on a string, he's going to be scary. But you saw it was a little loose. They were able to poke the ball out a couple times throughout the game. And then obviously the two big stops when it mattered the most. Ortega poking it out, drive when the game's tied. He drives down and gets fouled for the 2 free throws to put them up 2. They go back to Flagg, and Shire's just giving it to him, just like, all right, go get a bucket. And he couldn't do it. Amari Williams with the stop. It was the former defensive player of the year in his former conference. So it was cool to just see defense and physicality win for this team, because when threes aren't falling, what are they going to look like? And they had no mid-range game in the first half. It finally, no post game, really. 8 points in the paint and no middies. So they actually got to score at all 3 levels in that second half. That gives you a little bit more confidence that they'll be able to win games and score when they're not nailing all their threes like they are at Ruperino.
Tim, I want to pass it to you, but let's go ahead. I'm just going to go run through Cooper Flagg's stat line real quick, just to kind of give fans a little flashback of what he had. Cooper Flagg finished with 26 points. He finished with
12 boards.
Why is this? Oh, here it is. 12 boards, 2 assists, 2 blocks.
Yeah.
Had 3 turnovers. He shot 9 for 19 from the field. He hit 1 3, played 31 minutes, and was a -8. So, 26 points. I thought, thank God the last 2 or 3 possessions they had, he did choke a little bit and drop the ball. More credit to Kentucky clamping down on him. And then Ortega always stripping that from his hands and taking off on one of those last possessions. Phenomenal. But Tim, I wanted to pass it to you after that.
Yeah, real quick, Tim, before I hate plus minus. I've talked about it before. It's the worst. Like, he -8. What? So you're just going to keep Cooper Flagg out of the game if he has a bad plus or minus? Like, it's the worst stat ever. But the 2 blocks, man, yeah, his defense is for real too. He made a couple nice plays, protecting the paint. So that dude's the real deal. Once he gets his handle, because his middies there, off the dribble, in a pull-up jumpers, it's scary. That dude is for sure going to go number 1. And he's going to be a problem.
I forgot you hated that. I remember you saying that now. I totally forgot about that.
Hate it. Worst stat in basketball, I swear. Because it doesn't accurately represent like what they say it's the true impact, but it's not. It actually shows very little about what you're doing out there on the court. It's a team. It's a 5 group stat. Like that stat should be used with groups of 5, like lineups, rotations. That's where it should be, not individual players. You can't analyze a dude's game based on that stat. I don't get it, but Like Cooper Flagg was good. He had a couple turnovers, but that didn't make his plus or minus, and then have him a bad game. Like it's get out of here with that, man. Don't even read it anymore. Anytime. I appreciate you giving the rest of the stats. Leave that one out forever. I'm done with it.
Noted.
Well, I thought I saw where Cooper Flagg's 3 turnovers. Those came in like the last 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
It was 1 minute. Yeah,
1 minute.
There, the last 2 possessions of the game when it was tied, and then when they were down 2.
Yeah. I guess I don't know the full breakdown of Duke and what decision they decided to go there with, but I guess they kind of tried to go with their go-to man, and he wasn't ready for exactly what it was. And I can't remember the podcast, but they broke down that last possession a little bit where they try to run a few off-ball screens and everything, and then they ended up just reverting to that Cooper Flagg ISO, where he inevitably turned it over. But one of my favorite moments of the game, it was all throughout the game. Everybody kind of had their takeover moment. Andrew Carr had a great one where he had 2 and 1s within a minute of each other. I want to say Kirk Kriisa brought the energy. He's out there playing great defense and knocking down some great shots. Bottega Owe, had a great game.
Yeah.
Lamont Butler had several and 1s. Brandon Garrison had a few possessions there where he kind of took over there in the second half. So it's amazing to see how they can feed off of each other and be very productive off of it. But I know Jackson Robinson, we're probably going to touch on him later in the podcast. He didn't really have that great of a game, but that entire game he's still clapping, he's still smiling, he's still staying in the game. He understands that this is a team performance. This is supposed to work as a team, not just as an individual player.
Yeah, the thought at the end of the game, I just that the pick and roll with Knipple and Flagg, I just thought that they should have rolled with that more. Like to expect that 17-year-old who's lanky and still figuring out his body and still working on his dribble clearly, like to just say, all right, just go hero ball and just go get a bucket. I don't love that. And it worked with the pick and roll because Knipple is such a good shooter. He's a really sharp shooter, but he could dribble too. And he was getting to the cup on a few of them. He was just missing them. So he's got to work on his offensive game. He was like 5 for 20, I think. But, he could have had more at the rim that he just kind of missed. I feel like they should have went to that pick and roll, either Flagg pops or rolls. With Amari in there, you probably don't roll him. So you just have him stay out and pass it to him on a pop, or then he can get something off the dribble. But to just have no action there, like on-ball action, was just a little surprising. And he's only 17. He's just a kid, so he's certainly, even just maybe in a month, he'll have that down pat, maybe in a couple weeks, but just in that moment he didn't. He's still working on his game and his body.
Michael, that's the number 1 draft pick, apparently, Kirk Kriisa. Remember, did you see what he said after the game?
I did see it.
He jumped on the Field of 68 and got on their podcast, and he was like, I don't know why people give me so much crap for that. I mean, that's a compliment. He's like, he might be the number 1 at the very end. He's like, he might be the number 1 pick, but we left with the win, and then got the end. He got that little thing in. Friendly shots. He's not trying to start anything, but I love it, man. Kirk Kriisa is not afraid of the moment. He also said there's another clip that put out from their with Jeff and Rob and them, and he said, Duke fans were giving me crap all night long for my mustache. And he said, when the game's over, I went to go look for them and they were gone.
They're gone. Yeah.
Lives in front of built for the camera. I love hearing him talk about that stuff.
Yeah. Kerr was funny and they were kind of joking with him, which was cool. Just being like, oh, you finally got a win after like your West Virginia days, not getting many wins. I've listened to the whole thing while I was driving back today. Yeah. Those guys are good. I mean, obviously getting post-game interviews like that, Jeff obviously has pull. He's got everyone knows him. He's a legend from his ESPN days, and now doing great stuff with the Field of 68. So,
I gotta say, I'm such a big fan of John Fanta.
Yeah, he was good too.
Such a I don't know. We keep using this term a lot with this Kentucky team, but John Fanta, I mean, I only really knew about him about 2 years ago or so. He's new to me somewhat, but I consume everything he puts out. I don't know. He's a different approach to. He doesn't seem like he's too good. I'm not saying anyone does, but John Fanta is he's so what's the word? Just like innocent's not the right word, but just like I'm going blank.
Genuine or something.
Genuine. There you go. That's a good word. And he knows what he's talking about. And I just kind of wanted to put that out there. I've never got to. We've talked to Jeff and Rob a few times, but I've never got to meet John. Hopefully, we'll do that one day.
Yeah, I met Kyle Mann from The Ringer. That was cool. Obviously, Andy Katz is always bouncing around. It's one of those events, man. It's a big deal. I was trying to think like how many I've covered now, and I think it's 5. I think I covered 2 as a student.
First Kentucky, First one that Kentucky won in.
Yeah, while I was covering Kentucky, yeah, because they lost to Michigan State 2 years ago. They lost to Kansas last year. This is my 4th college basketball season. I had the first Oscar year, the second Oscar year, the Reed year, and this year, obviously. So this is now my 3rd, I think. And then I don't think I went in 2021, but then I went to 2 while I was a student at Michigan State. And so, I love this event because it's awesome for me to, get to watch Michigan State in person again. It's my alma mater, and see Izzo go up there. And these fans are trying to kick Michigan State out of the Champions Classic. And I'm like, get out of here, man. Hey, if you're looking at it, who's got more national championships in the 2000s, Michigan State or Kentucky? The answer is the same. They only have 1 each. So if you're going to kick out Michigan State, what, you want to kick out Kentucky too? Oh, no, well, Kentucky has the pull. They have the national image. It's like, man, well, how many have Final Fours? Like Izzo's been to 8 Final Fours. Come on, man. Don't try to kick us out of the Champions Classic. It's a great event. You know what? And now I think on the field of 60, were they talking about maybe doing a different one with like a Baylor, a Indiana, a North Carolina?
I didn't get to
I don't know.
Maybe not like a Champions Classic, but maybe another like non-conference, event, because this is obviously like the tip-off event for, college basketball. It's like the first big one. And I don't think I went 3 years ago, that first Oscar year. But yeah, it's a great event, man. And place gets packed, and, Kansas crowd and Michigan State crowd were both kind of whatever. Everyone was there for the nightcap. All the Kentucky and Duke fans are just, having beers, watching the first game. And then, the traffic was horrible. So like fans are still getting in there like throughout the first game. But man, like you could just feel the energy in the building, like Kentucky Duke, obviously Duke, North Carolina is like probably number 1 in college basketball, but I feel like Kentucky Duke has to be top 3 at least, if not the number 2. Like that is a legendary, rivalry right there. And it was just like, Shire's a newer face in the Champions Classic. Pope, brand new face. So it was cool to see 2 younger guys, and both teams are really good, man. I could see both going far in the tournament, but I think Duke is definitely going to be good. I mean, I think they might be like a top 3 seed, if not better, maybe win the ACC once they're freshmen. And, Proctor is good, their guards, like they're a scary team. So this is a good resume booster for the Cats to have once you get into March, because I feel like all these SEC teams are really going to beat up on each other, and because the conference is really good. And so whoever emerges out of it, who knows? But if the Cats have, 7 whatever losses, then this one will be nice on the resume, because Duke is going to be at least number 1 or 2 in the ACC.
A good angle, kind of like you were saying, a lot of like newer faces with John Shire and Mark Pope is like for years, decades, it was Cal and Coach K and Duke and Kentucky, and then Izzo's with Michigan State forever, Bill Self with Kansas forever. But like they were starting that turn of, why is Shire ever going to leave Duke unless, he just is awful? Why Mark Pope's never going to leave Kentucky unless he's awful? Like these, if everything goes right for both parties, which they should, historically, it says Duke and Kentucky are the winningest teams, or, the top few winningest teams. We're going to see the long run of this for years and years and years of Mark Pope and John Shire just going at it, assuming it's not like the switching to Michigan State and Kansas and whatnot, but like they got a long future ahead of going head to head with each other.
Well, yeah, and I don't know. Sorry, Tim. I kind of want to address this Pope love a little bit, because obviously I love it. I love Pope, but everyone's like, oh, he's he's perfect. Like, this is why we hired him, and we made the right choice. It's like, he was also like, don't forget that he was kind of like the fifth choice, like there were multiple other choices before him, but you made a good point that, Pope will be here forever. Probably. I mean, unless he wants to chase an NBA job, like, he's not going anywhere else in college. Like, if he wins here, he's staying here. He could be here 30 years. And that is why, among a lot of other reasons, like winning and Pope's energy, that could be another reason why it ended up actually working out as this was the best hire, even though he wasn't the first choice, is because he could just stay here. And as opposed to Scott Drew or Billy Donovan or,
Hurley.
Danny Hurley, like Bruce Pearl was not ever a legit thing, but the Rick Pitino, it's like all of these names, like, there's no long-term security. But Pope, it's like, this guy loves this place. This place loves him. And this could be like a 20-year partnership. I mean, someone tweeted out, like, get Pope the lifetime contract, after winning that game. It's like, all right, no more lifetime contracts.
No.
Let's not worry about that again, man.
No, for all we know, that could have a curse on our coaches with the turnouts of those. But no, I hope it's 2040 and we're still seeing those two out there coaching in the Champions Classic, and hopefully we got a few more banners at that point. But yeah, I mean, I just like you're saying, Michael, I don't know. Can't really even see Mark Pope going for an NBA job unless they're paying him like triple amount that he's getting here or something like that. But if we had Hurley or any of the other names you listed off there, maybe 2-3 years, turn around, go to the NBA. You never know. So it's nice to have that longevity. Whenever we win games, I'm happy for, of course, the fans. I'm happy for the Pope family. I'm happy for all the players. And it's such just like, I'm not going to sit there and say like the Cal years were awful, but it's very refreshing to see this type of compassion and out there.
Yeah, well, and he also wants to get up, and join the others. I mean, obviously Rupp's at the top, but I mean, Joe B got one, Patino got one, Tubby got one, Cal got one. Those guys are etched in this program's history, and Pope wants to be there, but he wants to get more than one. Whoever gets more than one just automatically jumps the rest. Even after the bridges are rebuilt and the love is rebuilt with Cal, like 10 years down the line or whenever it is, like, the fans will love him too, and they love the rest. But the whole thing was like, Cal getting the second one, that'll put him above the rest. That'll put him up there with Rupp, and so. Who knows if Pope can even get one, if not try to get more. But I also saw someone say, like, the scary thought is this is going to be Pope's worst team. And it's like, it's kind of an interesting thought. It's like, he doesn't have any, 5 stars or 4 stars. He just kind of threw this team together. It could be his best team. But next year looks pretty good and could get even better with Caleb Wilson. We'll see. But with signing day today, next year's team already looks pretty good with the incoming guys, but he's losing a lot. So he's going to have to work in the portal to get defense, because all these guys are leaving. So it's kind of like, could this be Pope's worst team? What has he accomplished with this team that he just kind of threw together? It's an interesting thought, but it's obviously more of a thought for, later on down the line. But I like this team a lot, and they needed this one. They just had to prove that they could do it against, one of the top teams. They proved that they can score 100 on these cupcakes. That's great, but they needed this one. I think everyone can kind of breathe a little sigh of relief that it's like, okay, this team actually is good. Like, everyone thought they were good, wanted to believe it, wanted to believe in Pope, wanted to believe in these guys, but a little nervous. And then they just go out there and win this game. It's like, okay, like, they're actually good. And you hope that doesn't set the stage for a letdown throughout the rest of this non-conference. The Gonzaga game will be a tough one. Clemson, Louisville, Ohio State, they should beat, right? So I think this is looking pretty good for the next, 6 weeks or so until you get into conference play, because then it changes, I think.
Yeah. And Tim, I mean, these guys love to be here. I mean, you know, Otega Owe had his great stretch at the end. In his post-game comments, he says, starts off, it's a dream to play for Kentucky. I'm reading his quotes right here. Wearing Kentucky across your chest, you just have to carry yourself a certain way. You're not playing just for yourself. You're playing for a whole nation. And as you just talked about, Michael, the fans that showed up and what I talked about hearing them through the TV, like these guys want to be here, and they a lot of them, you know, we're going to have a lot of turnover next year. A lot of them run out of eligibility, things like that. Like this 1 year of it maybe is Mark Pope's worst team. It could be down the road. Like these guys, it's just a special, unique year, his first inaugural year, first time everything. And like these guys want to be desperately a part of it. And it might be the greatest thing they ever do. They're not going to probably get this much, you know, fan interaction after they leave here. And just, it's special, man. And then you go out and beat Duke when you weren't expected to. Like things are great to me right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's still that honeymoon phase for sure. You know, we're talking about that and we're talking about how everything seems to be going perfect right now. I'm just worried about that one thing that's gonna knock it off the rails and see how we recoup from that.
Yeah. I will, as I normally do, bring down the party a little bit and bring you guys back down to reality. And the reality is that you guys probably shouldn't have won that game last night. I mean, Duke had multiple opportunities there in that second half, up 10. Like they had wide open threes. Flagg had a couple, you know, like they had multiple opportunities to really put that game away because you felt like they were just letting Kentucky hang around, you know, at 8 or 10. You know, if it got to 12, 14, 16, the game's probably over since you're not shooting threes that well. So once they let them hang in just enough, and then they scrapped and clawed their way back in the 8, the 6, the 4, the 2. And eventually took the lead with like 2.5 left. But really, probably shouldn't have won that game. The interior defense, as I mentioned, is a little worrisome. And at the end of the day, like it was good to see them find other ways to score the basketball because, like in that first half, if you're just relying on threes, like I'm telling the guys that I'm shooting the game with, like teams that just rely on threes and only score threes, they don't win national championships. They just don't. They crumble in March because you're just not going to shoot lights out for 6 straight games. You're not. So if that's all you can do, and that was why it was looking a little scary there in the first half. After you went on that run, you started 5 for 5 from 3, then went like 1 for 10.
Yeah, it was 0 for 8 at one point.
0 for 8, then 1 for 10 the rest of the half. I'm like, you can't just rely on the 3, man. And then like a couple middies like were way off. Amari didn't have that touch around the rim. He got that and one, but like the other guy, you know, Carr missed that little turnaround fade away that he's been trying to hit, and eventually that'll start falling. He's been working on that. He's shot it every game, I think, and eventually that'll fall. But like nothing really mid-range was working, and you know, they weren't looking great around the rim either. And I'm like, guys, you can't just rely on threes. You got to find other ways. So it was good that they did that. I want to see more of that for sure. And you mentioned the adjustment, you know, just kind of pushing it in more, just trying to force it in the paint and find other ways to score. You know, Carr going off the dribble and getting in there for 2 and 1s. Like you love to see that. You know, Lamont, you know, Timo, you said Lamont getting that and 1. And there's another one. Otega got a bucket, you know, close to the rim. Britt Garrison got a couple right at the rim. One was a follow-up, but one was like actually a good bucket for him. And then, then the long 2. So everyone – and then Amari got another one at the rim, I think, in that second half. So they were able to score inside and around there, which is an encouraging sign because they're going to have to do that more. And like you can't let that lull in that first half, right? From after going 5 for 5, then you're brutal the rest of the half. You know, if that happens in the second half, then you're cooked, right? You're losing. So it took them through halftime, really into the second half, to figure out how to get that rolling, and defense turned into offense for them too. But they got to figure that out quicker, where if they're just hitting threes, they can just shoot and hit those. And just like that first half, man, that's fun, you know. crowd's lit up. Ansley's hitting a couple, this and that. Like, that's fun. But if it's not working, maybe get into the other stuff a little sooner. It took a little while, and you fell behind in the first half going into halftime. Into the second half, you're down double digits. Duke, had opportunities to just put the nail in the coffin and end that game, and other teams are going to do that. So they got to avoid getting in that lull for too long and falling behind. It'll happen in other games. Will they be able to scratch and pull their way out of it like they did in this one? We'll see. They won't always be able to do it, but if they can try to get out of it and recover sooner after going cold from three, that's going to be a challenge for this team. We'll see how they do in that.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge point of emphasis. Probably my biggest takeaway as well is post presence, offense and defense. I mean, yeah, we had that last few minutes of the game. Andrew Carr went kind of adrenaline rush, nuclear and ones. That was great, but he was getting beat on defense the whole night. I kept watching him when they would switch him. They'd try to pick him on a screen, and he was trying to switch around it, and he was going for he was getting mixed up. He was guarding Cooper Flagg, so he'd come over and get picked and would try to go chase after the guy that leave Cooper Flagg wide open over and over. And I just think he was getting real mixed up and getting confused by that. And he made up on offense for what he lacked on defense. But I really, really liked what I saw from Amari Williams. I think as of this point of the season, when we're going to go against these teams that are dominant in the post, I think Amari Williams is not the best choice in the world, but I think he's our best in terms of defense and offense. Amari Williams is huge, big shoulder guy. He was just constantly, he was getting the ball at the free throw line. I was like, okay, I'm putting my back on you and going right to the rim. I mean, he wasn't successful the whole time, but Andrew Carr, I mean, outside of a couple of great little hooks and one layups, his defense was giving up so many points in the paint. They were wearing us out all night. Our post presence on defense is gotta be fixed. And that's only 3 games. But also I would like to see one, Lamont Butler and Kerr Kriisa, when the threes aren't falling, them going to the rack. I mean, Lamont Butler did that a little bit. That might be another angle to find more points. And then also Jackson Robinson at one point, I think the whole game, right? I know he had 1 point at halftime, but that's surely, knock on wood, never going to happen again. So you're going to have that to factor in as well. He can get to the rim as well. Did he finish with 1, Lamont Butler?
Yeah. Oh, Butler.
Jackson Robinson.
Yeah, just 1 point, 0 for 4.
Yeah, that's surely never going to happen again. But Kerr Kriisa had a 3 or 2. He had a couple of points that were good to suffice that as well.
Kerr is awesome, dude.
Yeah.
It's so funny out there.
If that heat check went in where he's right around the hash mark, we would have gone nuts.
And just his emotion, the energy he brings off the bench. We've seen it. We saw it the last game at Rupp against Bucknell, and this game just clapping. He did one. He locked someone down and was clapping. He went over and did his little mustache and went like that. Just even if you don't score, you bring that to the team and make everybody else get elevated. I mean, that's all I'm asking for you from Kerr Kriisa. Anything else is better. Everybody's got their own twist. No Travis Perry, Trent. No, I fully expected that, but they would have. I love those guys, but they would have not belonged in this game. So I think we're going to have to think about that going forward in these big games. Not going to see Travis Perry and Trent No, which is fine. I'm just observing that.
Yeah, well, and Colin Chandler, I love him. He's my doppelganger, but he came in for only a couple minutes, right? And he had it on the wing and was just kind of standing there for a few seconds and didn't even dribble it, and it just kind of felt like, him not really ready for that moment. But they played 10 guys, should have been 9, right, without Chandler. But the other 9, you kind of use all 9, right? So we were wondering how would that rotation shrink? Well, it's probably not gonna, right? Because Garrison, Kobe Brea, Ansley, and who's
Chandler.
the 9?
Chandler. You're talking about Colin Chandler. You're talking about who didn't play as much? Is that who you're talking about?
Well, they played 10 guys. So I'm saying the guys off the bench was Kobe, it was Garrison, it was Ansley, and it was Chandler. And then who was the last one? Who am I forgetting? Kerr, right. Oh, of course. So, yeah, if it's Chandler's not playing, but still 9, all those guys, you need them, right? Kerr is huge. Kobe's huge. Garrison, you have to have them to get some minutes there at the 5. And so I like their bench. Kerr certainly great and Kobe great off the bench. And if Garrison gets those big plays like he did in this game, that's huge. To have another big just to come in and produce. But I did like Carr at the 5. I like that lineup with Lamont and Kerr, and then Ortega and then just someone else, Ansley or Jackson. It would be nice if they're producing, and then Carr at the 5. I think that would be a fun lineup to see a little bit more. Just if you're not playing a team that's got a big that maybe Carr can't handle, then it's a nice little small ball lineup. Just get 5 shooters out there.
That bench, like when the bench comes in, there's not a crazy drop off from the starting 5 to the bench. I mean, there is a little bit as expected, but like nothing crazy. Like we do have depth. When Duke, I just don't know how much depth they had, and I think long term that helps. In our matchup specifically, but like our bench is not a crazy drop off. I mean, when Lamont Butler got in foul trouble, they just brought Kirk Kriisa in, and like I didn't see much of a drop off from there. But Michael, I know we're kind of getting close to letting you go. We're all on fumes. I think Michael slept a couple hours. I slept 5 hours last night. Tim, you probably slept a couple hours too.
Dude, I was on social media for way too long after that game. Oh man, I was up till like probably 1:30.
Yeah, Michael. As we were saying, you were there. Can you kind of take us there for half the majority of the fan base saw it on TV. The select few were in person, but you were on the floor, as we know, as media. Thankfully, we get to do. Can you take us through that moment when Mark Pope's waving to the fans, kissing his wife, and then maybe into the press conference a little bit, and just anything that stuck out to you? Just detail it for us if you can, how it was.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, right when the game ends, just run on the court. Players are celebrating, so I just kind of ran up to them, got some shots of them, and then once the handshake line gets through, Pope got done, and then the assistants are next. And Pope is celebrating with all of them. I mean, it was a really cool moment that I tweeted out. A video. First, it was Cody, and then
Alvin Brooks.
Alvin, then Jason, then Mark, and then but then the rest. But Pope celebrated with all of them, and then was going up to the players. But it was cool to see the whole staff kind of like Pope was just like dapping them up. Like he got amped up with the whole staff. Cody was the first one, and he was like amped up.
Biggest part of the career. I mean,
yeah, I think Cody. It was when we're at Rupp, the Kentucky bench is all the way on the other side. So for this game, like the bench was right there. So I was spending some time just trying to listen. Pope, man, he's got to be the nicest coach of all time. Like he doesn't bark at the refs at all.
What's he say? What's he say to the refs?
Oh my gosh. So the play when in the second half, it was late in the game, it was kind of a big play where I think it was Ortega or one of them kind of gets like tripped. I thought there could have been a foul call, but it's like it flies out of bounds and they say UK ball, and then they switch it to Duke ball. And then like Pope is just like, what? And he's going to the ref and he's like, hey, can I please get an explanation? Can I please get an explanation? I'm like, what? Like that was actually a huge possession. Like in like the second half, like there was like less than 10 minutes left. And like, that's a huge possession that you just lost the ball. Like I thought it should have been a foul. And like any other coach, when their player falls down and like,
on the ref and everything,
like there's contact, the player falls, the ball goes out of bounds, then they're already going to bark about a foul. Like they're going to want a foul, even if the ref does say it's their ball. If the ref gives the ball to the other team, any coach, Cal, whoever, is just barking at the refs for sure. Face getting red, like yelling at them. Pope is like, can I get an explanation? He's like, can I please get an explanation? I can't remember if he said please or not, but that's what it was. Like, he was like, can I get an explanation? But he didn't say it like in a mean way. He was genuinely just like, he was amped up, but like he was asking a question. And I was just like, you gotta work the game. You gotta work the refs a little bit, right? Like you gotta bark at them. And he doesn't do any of that, man. He barely talks to them. Yeah. Like he doesn't talk to those refs much. He talks to Cody a lot. And then Jason pitched in a couple times. And then
Brooks. Mark Fox, Alvin Brooks.
No, keep going.
McLean, or what's his name? Michael McLean or something? Michael McLean.
No, it's
while you're looking at that, but Michael, I mean, we heard this summer he went to officials. He went to that camp and learned how officially, like he respects, like he genuinely, I believe, wanted an explanation so he could understand what that was like. I completely believe that. And any other coach, like not even naming coaches, they spit on him and red face, all the emotions. That's crazy.
Nick Robinson, the director of ops. He taught him and Cody talked to Pope the most throughout that game, which was interesting. Cody, I expected, that's his right-hand man, coming over from BYU, but Robinson was in his ear a lot. They were talking a lot. So it was, Pope talked to his staff. And another thing I noticed, Pope is kind of funny when he's calling a guy to get in the game. Like he didn't do it late in the game. It's serious at that point. But like through the first half, he's like, he calls in Kerr, he's looking down the line. He's like, who should I put in? And he's like, Kerr. And then he's like, go on, boy. Like, come on, buddy. And then he's like, smacking him on the butt. Or like he had a couple he said like something funny to another player calling him in the game. And like he smiled and the player smiled. A couple other guys smiled. And I was like, that's kind of cool. Like he's not just like, Kerr, you're in, just like a regular coach. Pope, like you could tell Pope loves these guys. They love Pope. The vibes are so high with this group. But he was kind of funny. So not only is Pope being funny with his subs, he's not barking at the refs. Pope kind of like walked in the wrong direction a couple times pregame, and then he was like kind of like, I think it was right after the little interview that they did on the broadcast with Pope and Shire. He like walked and then he like kind of turned himself around, and then before he went up to Shire, once he came in, he kind of like spun around, and then pregame he didn't really know where to stand. He was kind of like walking around while the team was getting introduced in the arena. So it's kind of like he's still kind of figuring this out too. Obviously he's been a coach for a while, been on the sidelines for a while, but like this was a massive game. The TV ratings, how many millions we're watching compared to, the other games that him and these players have coached and played in. So like you can kind of feel like the moment was really big for everybody. That's like, this is the Champions Classic. Like when you're in college basketball, this is the deal. After March, of course, like in the non-conference, and like, this is an awesome event. And so it was kind of funny to see him not nervous, but it's kind of like, out of place for a couple of seconds. And then, but he walks up and down the sideline pretty frantically. He doesn't sit. I don't think he's sat really much at all. I didn't see him sit really at all. Shire sat a few times, but Pope stood up the whole game. He stayed calm. He was kind of looking around a little bit, but he never seemed frazzled. There were a couple times where like, the defense made some like boneheaded plays, but when the defense was on my end in the first half, they were scoring towards Duke's side first half. So defense was on our side. And so then, Pope didn't really like get into them and give them crap. He kind of, would look a little frustrated, but then just, you just clap, it's all right. Come on, guys. He didn't really like give any of the players that much crap,
It's what nice. It's what he was preaching after Buck now, using that frontal lobe and not the limbic system.
Yeah. Like he's just I'm trying to think of some other like I tried to take some time to just watch him, since we can't at Rupp, we can't hear him, in these away games, they'll put you right next to the bench. So they were getting up in our grill, when they were celebrating.
How was this with Leanne Pope, and right after the game concluded, and he's waving? How was that moment too? It looked really cool through the television.
Yeah, it was really cool. After getting him celebrating with his staff, I went over to that other side just to get some shots of the players walking off. Kerr and Cody arm in arm. And then I stayed there because Leanne got on the court. So I just like posted up there, and I was kind of standing by Leanne for a few minutes while Pope was doing his post game on the broadcast. And then he goes over and gives her a big hug and kiss, and then hugs his daughter. Like, that was awesome. And then some UK fans were like, "Who's in the house tonight? UK." They kept doing that. But yeah, it was a great moment because that's the first family of the Commonwealth now. Everybody loves Leanne. Like, people I work with, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I love Leanne. Like, I want to meet her." Leanne came up to us after the game, me and a couple other reporters, and she's awesome. The family's awesome. He's awesome. So it's really cool. And and then it looked just like Stoops after that Ole Miss win, where he's like, yeah, and he's like, come on. He wasn't. Pope was more just like, yeah. He wasn't. I don't think he gave one of these, but he just gave like the fist bumps, just kind of the pumps, like this one meant a lot to him. You can feel it. He stays so reserved, and he was reserved in the post-game presser and, saying all the right things of, oh, this is about us, team win. But like, this means a lot to him. He wants to prove himself. I know it. And I know he's heard of he's never won an NCAA tournament game. He wants to check that off his bucket list and just accomplish it at UK. But he wants to prove himself, and this was an opportunity to prove himself. Go out there and coach your team to victory against Duke on a national stage. So you got to think that, man, he was on top of the world. I mean, him giving a big hug to his wife was all that he needed post-game. But it's certainly pretty cool to see him, like, pump up the fans as he was walking off the court.
I mean, we talked about it last podcast, like a little bit of divine intervention of like everything's – how is this, 41 – won the first game by 41. He beat Duke, done every checklist in front of him the whole way. Like, why can't he? There's absolutely nothing in this little brain that makes me think that, like, he can't win in March. I mean, he's got to go do it, but, like, I'm as confident as ever. Like, he's checked off every single box along the way, and, like, he couldn't have – there's nothing else he could have done since he's been here since last April that – there's nothing left on the table. I mean, if you want to be picky, it would have been not losing or not winning against Duke, but they did, man. Like, he's got things rolling, and he's just getting started. 3 games into this, and the biggest win of his career for any of those guys involved, player or staff. And just, man, last night was special. Like, to be a Kentucky fan, it's like you're supposed to beat these Dukes in North Carolina. You're supposed to beat these schools, and we've not. Outside, had that Kansas road win a couple years ago. That was fun with Oscar, Kellen Grady, etc. But, like, it's been a little while, man. It's been a while, and it's so rewarding. That's why we were up. I was up to 2 a.m. last night. Tim, you said you're up to late as well. I was just, of course, I hated that we couldn't be there, but just consuming every piece of content, watching everything. I've been doing that all day long, too. I'm going to be doing it tomorrow, 2 days after the game, of content that came out from that. Just, man. And then now this team's got, a week off, and I think they play Lipscomb Tuesday night back in Rupp. I think now we get back into – working on our issues, our weaknesses, learning how to score when the three's not falling. Things have been fun so far, but let's go get to the core, the meat and potatoes, as our guy Braden says on our football podcast. But let's go fix our minor issues, and then we go what you said at Clemson, Gonzaga, and man, try to win those games. I mean, I can't. Those are not going to be harder than Duke. At Clemson is going to be a crazy environment, but I think Kentucky's going to have the better team, but.
That'll be their first true road game, and then Gonzaga will it'll be technically a neutral site, but probably gonna feel like a road game. So
yeah, the final score didn't show up much, but my EKU Colonels put up a little bit of a good fight against Clemson there at Clemson. So
they were winning in the second half.
Yeah, that was a good game to see.
Yeah, so Clemson might not be as good as we thought, or EKU is just for real. Let's go. Kearns.
Hey, we'll see.
Kearns. But one of those two might be where we see their first loss, but they're not going to get it before then. I mean, it's really just like Lipscomb and a couple others like that.
For everybody watching, it's Wednesday night. We're about to wrap this up. Late Wednesday night. Any of you guys going to be at Murray State this Saturday? Kentucky football at Murray State. We're going to see y'all there.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Not me. We'll see if I tune in on TV though.
Yeah,
Trace, I'm glad you didn't end up in the slammer after burning a couch, huh? Were you out there? Were you?
No. The way I grew up, those are for tournament wins. Like, I'm not going to be like some big bum about it. Not bum. I'm not going to be some old head, a complainer, negative Nancy, whatever you want to call it, of like, why are we burning the couch? But like, there was a little bit of me. I'm like, you're supposed to beat these teams. You know, it's Duke wouldn't have done that for us. And the way I remember growing up in my high school, right after high school, was all those tournament wins. I think of burning couches with tournament wins, and then we got a little bit of those big Stoops wins when he Florida at home, LSU, etc. I wish they would, but I'm not going to complain about it. I wouldn't have done it. But you know, I mean, the moment was bigger because it was Mark Pope's first. But if it was Cal and Kentucky would have won last year, I kind of would have been like, man, like, come on, we're Kentucky, act like we beat Duke before, type of deal.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. Like, they wouldn't have done that with Cal, but you know, it's a big moment. So they had fun, and let's hope they burn another one in March or April.
And hey, real quickly, those people in college right now that did all that, I mean, they were in elementary school when we were Aaron Harrison and all that. Like, you know, this is their first too. Maybe there's a little bit of that angle too. Maybe that's why. But
well, yeah, they haven't, even the seniors, they haven't seen their basketball team get out of the first weekend since they've been in school.
Literally, yeah.
They want this bad.
Yeah, but all right, guys, I guess we'll wrap this up. It's late Wednesday night. Everybody watching this, please follow us. Michael Epps on Twitter, Tim Smith on Twitter. I'm on Twitter, Cats Coverage on Facebook, and then this will be on our YouTube channel. It's going to be streaming on a couple of things, social media as well. So give everybody a follow. I appreciate everybody that listens. We're consistent with this. We've been doing this our second year. Keep up with us as well outside of just letting this show up on your For You page and getting lucky to see it. Keep up with us and try to keep us going forward. That's all I have, guys. Anything else from you all?
Nope, good here.
All right. Well, Cats are 3-0. Take on Murray State this weekend in football and see how it goes.